I've always really wanted to tap into my full potential. I don't know where it came from. I've always been very competitive.
Alan and CC from Cheeky Glo.
This is our main product here, the Cheeky Glo exfoliating glove.
Nothing like dead skin in the morning to start your day, right? I've always wanted to be scrubbed by a man named Alan in a park.
If I look at my customer database over the last 3 years, we've had over 110,000 customers around the world. Wow, I've actually been able to touch 110,000 and share something that we've created from nothing. It's incredibly important to listen to the right people.
How did you get into the right crowd?
That's a really good question. I genuinely believe in one thing. All you need sometimes is, if you don't believe in yourself, is for one person to believe in you. If someone can see in you something special, then you should take that and run. Go and find the right mentor. Do whatever you can to get in proximity of them. Go across and add extreme value to people where they can't even ignore you. Watching my parents go through a lot of financial struggles, it was fighting every day. I don't think there was a single day for a period of like 5 years where I didn't hear screaming and arguing, and dad sometimes got a temper, so he would throw a plate across the room. During that period, we ate from bins. Like, that's the only fresh produce we ever got. So I was like, man, this is not the life I want to live.
So Alan, what do I need to know about your early years and your upbringing for me to get a good context of who you are today?
It's a good question. Look, when I was young, well, I'm born here, right? So it's pretty good. But my parents came to Australia probably late 80s, early 90s. So my upbringing was very interesting. Growing up in a first generation immigrant household, watching my parents work, 16 to 20 hours a day. It was actually very fascinating, I think, as a kid. So as a kid, like, when you grow up, a lot of people think, parents come to Australia for a great opportunity, but that automatically means you're well off, or or that automatically means that, you're in Australia, so you should be lucky. And of course that's true, but the big thing with especially Asian immigrants, it ain't easy. I'm sure you watch your parents as well growing up, me watching my parents growing up, like, we see the struggle that they go through. 16 to 20 hours of work a day, 3 jobs a day, is not easy. Like, you're talking about a morning shift, a middle of the day to night shift, and then a graveyard shift. Like, that's incredibly difficult.
Do you even see your parents?
No, I didn't. Like, I was raised by my grandparents up until the age of 4.
Yeah.
So I rarely got to see my parents growing up. And when I did see my parents, they'll be home for half an hour or an hour, cook dinner, and then off they go. Second job, third job, fourth job for the day. And it happens. That happened for a large chunk of my life, for me and my brother's life actually as well. And so we grew to be very independent very, very early on. And I learned those skills, or I learned that sort of mindset very early on, just because parents weren't there. They weren't able to give me a lot of the guidance that I needed. I was mainly raised by my grandparents, so I hold a lot of like traditional Chinese values, the whole traditional be a gentleman to women, the whole look after your family first. All of those sort of values I retained because of my grandparents. My parents were always working, and then watching them work really instilled a big driver in me of work ethic. Take pride in your work, no matter how hard, how shit the job is. You still got to do it well. Not just that, but work hard to provide for your family, work hard to provide for yourself as well. And that was something that was very important for my upbringing. I believe it really instilled a lot of the values that I have for me today. And I didn't learn it through being told it. I learned it through observation. I think that was very, very interesting.
What did your parents do? You said, three jobs.
Yeah, it's a lot.
What did mum do? What did dad do?
So mum was a seamstress. So she worked in like one of those sewing factories, actually in Marrickville, which is somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
Also worked in the kitchen. And so mum did 2 very long jobs. Oh, and Kodak. So she moved into Kodak, if some people still remember Kodak.
Yeah.
She was producing the films in the graveyard shift.
Yeah.
And then dad was Baker's Delight. In Sydney, we had a place called Sizzler. So he worked at Sizzler as like a chef's hand and whatever.
Yeah.
But he worked Baker's Delight for the morning shift, which is like a 3 a.m. start. Then he would come home and then do the Sizzler shift as a chef. Well, not a chef, but like a kitchen hand. And then he would finish work, and then he'll be the cleaner for Sizzler as well.
Yeah, right.
So he would do that was his. Early morning all the way through the graveyard. And then that was like his lifestyle. It was pretty crazy, and they really wanted to do that and work hard because they wanted to start their own business. The Aussie dream. Come to Australia, start your own business, make a bit of money, have kids, and then send your kids to Australian schooling. that's what they wanted to do. And it was really interesting to see that. So observing that growing up, it was tough. You know, it was very tough. It was just me and my brother at home all the time. I learned to walk to school, even though it wasn't too far. It's about like, 800 meters away. I learned to walk to school very, very young, like 6, 7, 8 years old, like year 1, year 2, year 3.
Yeah.
I was already going to school by myself, coming home by myself.
Yeah.
Usually, people say stranger danger, right? You don't let your kids walk home from school, like someone's going to kidnap you. Like that's always the theory. But yeah, it was fine. Like my parents sent me to school by myself. They walked me a couple times, then I walked home by myself. So yeah, learning independence very, very quickly. My grandparents left Australia after I was 4 or 5, I think it was. And that pretty much just meant my parents and me and my brother. And so from then on, it was kind of like we had to go our own way. We're off on our own, do our own homework, do our own studies. They wanted me to play instruments or whatever. We had to practice ourselves. So I used to always cheat.
Yeah.
I used to always be like to my parents, I did it, but I never did it. Because I remember we had this abacus. That's how we used to keep tally.
I remember,
my dad got me an abacus, and he'd be like, make sure you practice your keyboard. We couldn't afford a piano.
Merry Christmas, here's an abacus.
Yeah, exactly. pretty much. We used to have a keyboard because we couldn't afford a piano. Pianos are expensive. They're like 5 to 20 grand, depending on what type of piano. And so my parents got me an electric keyboard because it was like $150. So I would need to play the keyboard, I need to play the verse or play the song, and then I need to flick the abacus. So that would count as, I practiced. They used to come home from work and they'll be like, have you done your practice for today? And I was like, yeah, for sure. like 50 times. I've practiced 50 times today. And then they would bring in the teacher like once a fortnight or whatever, because that's all we could afford. And then, and the teacher was actually really funny because she was our supplier for our stock as well. So she did our supplies for the stock. Like they had a warehouse. And then at the same time she did the supplies for stock, she also taught keyboard and piano on the side.
Everybody just had multiple hustles.
Everyone had multiple hustles.
Yeah.
Like, so it's very normal for me now when people go, hey, Alan, you have 6 businesses. I'm like, yeah, what of it? Like, it's normal, isn't it? Like, and people go, how do you juggle it? I'm like, I don't know. My parents did it. My parents' friends did it. I can do it. Like, it's pretty normal. And then anyway, so she used to come over and she used to test me on how good I was. And I was so dog shit. And that's when my dad would just give me an ass whooping because I was like, I practiced, but obviously I didn't. So, I mean, that was my life growing up. It was a series of pretending I did homework, pretending I studied, pretending I did keyboard, learning how to do things for yourself, and really figuring out how to just enjoy life, make the mundane exciting. Because like our lifestyle is very simple. It was go to work with our parents during the day if we were not at school, or go to school by yourself, come home, make sure you do your homework, make sure you practice your keyboard. And that was pretty much it, growing up. And I remember, I tell this story all the time, is, during the GFC time, it was probably one of the worst times in, my parents' lives, for sure. For me, I was still a bit young. I was only, when was that, 2008, 2009, I was 12, 13 at the time. During that period of time, watching my parents go through a lot of financial struggles, it was fighting every day. Like, I think a lot of Asian kids are quite familiar with this. Watching their parents fight every day over money. I think even you went through that as well. And that was like the major issue. And so with that major issue, it was crazy. I watched them fight literally I don't think there was a single day for a period of like 5 years where I didn't hear screaming and arguing. And, my dad sometimes got a temper, so he would throw a plate across the room. Like, it's shit like that. And I think a lot of Asian households, we're used to it, right? Like our parents, dad's going, bang, and then he'll just smash something and then everyone's crying. And then so I watched that for a good 5 years. And so I was like, fuck man, this is not the life I want to live. And it was tough because during that period, like the hardest thing for us is borderline bankruptcy, just bought a new property, so you got a mortgage locked in, interest rates were sky high during those days, and no money coming in. We had staff stealing from us, we had our shops going down, sales were declining rapidly because recession obviously, or GFC. We don't call it a recession during that time, but GFC, right? And so rent went up as well. I remember my parents, the biggest argument, how are we gonna pay rent? Rent was increasing every month. And it was just crazy during that period of time. We had one shop left, we closed down everything, we moved into our house. That house was stacked to the ceiling, full of our stock. Lounge room, double garage, all stock. Could barely walk. And we were borderline bankruptcy. There was no hope. We had $1 million of stock between the 3 stores. Having all of that sort of stockpile in our house, that sat in our house for a good 3-4 years before we offloaded everything for like pennies on the dollar. So it was a crazy period. Like during that period, we ate from bins. Like that's the only fresh produce we ever got. Was for, I think it was a good 3 to 6 month period. My mum reminded me of it like recently. She's like, do you remember that time when we used to go and scrunch through bins for like lettuce and like cabbage and stuff like that? And I was like, the fuck, since when did we do that? You know, because for me, that memory is different to my parents. And I find that is extremely fascinating. Like during that time, me and my brother, we would jump in the bins, we were cheering. We're like, Mom, look, we found a cucumber, it's rotten on this end, but it's fresh on this end. So we cut it in half, we eat the fresh end. And that was normal, that was cool for us. We're like, oh fuck, free food, bro, that was awesome.
Found treasure.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, we got free food. You know, I was like, look at this apple, this side's fucked, but this side's good, so let's cut it off. And we used to always, like, I used to always ask my mom, like, why do we have half cut up fruit, you know, in our lunch boxes and shit? Didn't realize that was what we were going through. You know, for us it was fun. For my parents, it was like life or death. You know, and I remember we used to have treats, right? Because we were still young, obviously. My parents still wanted us to live some sort of a normal life. And so our treat, our reward, like if we behaved, we went to school properly, we did our homework. They used to get, do you remember pork floss? Like, bro, pork floss was the best thing ever. So we didn't used to buy a lot of meat because obviously meat was expensive, and our veggies came from a fucking bin. So like for our treat, it was a jar of pork floss, and it was expensive, right? It was like $12.90 or $9.90 or whatever for a packet, like one of those clear plastic packets, and then you had the tub. And then so my parents would get us a tub of pork floss, and that was our like reward. And we would eat it with our congee, because we ate congee for like 6 months straight. Like that was our lifestyle. It was congee and those bean curds. You know, in Chinese it's tofu roux. You know, the little, like, it's like a salted, preserved bean curd thing. So if you have never tried it, I'd recommend it. But I'm sick of it now. So we ate that pretty much every day for 6 months. And then when we were like lucky, we got a sprinkle of pork floss, because like that was our treat.
Some real meat.
Some real meat, right? And so that was my life, you know, during those periods. I was like 12, 13 at the time.
That's fascinating.
And my parents didn't want me to go through that period. They got introduced into network marketing as well. And so they gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad as a birthday gift. And so I think that moment was like...
Happy birthday, Abacus.
Happy birthday, Abacus. Here's a book, right? I was like, I wanted Harry Potter, but you know, no Harry Potter for me. It was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so that was I think a very defining moment in my childhood that kind of like changed the way I saw life and really perceived success and what I wanted to achieve.
I mean, there's a certain amount of empathy we can all have to parents in that situation. And obviously you, like being an adult now, looking back, a lot of that has been like quite beneficial for your growth anyway.
Absolutely.
Right?
It was been game changing for me.
But looking back also, is there anything that you would have changed? Like you sort of, if you had a magic wand, I wished maybe we could have gone on more holidays, or we could have... Is there anything that you feel like you would have changed?
Well, that's a crazy question, because like, if we were to change something in the past, we wouldn't be who we are today. Right? Like, that's the crazy thing about changing the past. Honestly, I am a strong believer that my past has created my present, right? And I'm very grateful. You know, back in the day, I didn't really understand what I was going through, but I'm actually extremely grateful for who I am today because of who I was in the past. If I were to change anything, I don't know. Because if I had gone on more holidays, if I had gotten more gifts, if I was actually lucky, you know...
If you got a Harry Potter book.
But if I got a Harry Potter book. Just one. A singular Harry Potter book. You know, who would I be today? It could be completely different. Maybe I would be more stuck up. Maybe I'd be more spoiled. I've never really thought about it to a deep level, because I've always said, you know, no regrets with anything you do with life, and, you know, always be grateful for everything that's come. But if I were to change one thing in particular, maybe I should have actually tried harder at school. I think that would have been a big difference. Like, you know, I didn't really try too hard in school. I was very competitive, but I never really tried too hard academically, because one, it bored me. But I'm always thinking, what if, you know, I tried a little bit harder in school? What if my base academic level was a lot higher? Like, where would that have gotten me in life? Like, could that experience... Well, number one, I probably wouldn't have a HECS debt, because I could have gotten a scholarship. You know, I'm thinking financially now, right? Like, no HECS debt would be great, because that helps me with mortgage, that helps me with everything else, lending and all of that, right? But if I studied harder and I got access to different degrees, could that have allowed me to meet different people that would have driven me down a different pathway, where I would have pursued something potentially more down the academic field rather than entrepreneurial field? And I thought that would be something interesting during those times, because study definitely wasn't the peak of my agenda. I hated it. You know, I would cheat. every single time I got the opportunity to.
Yeah.
I just hated doing homework. And every single time we did homework, it wasn't, well, I did the same textbook over and over again, right? Like the one thing my parents invested into me a lot was my study.
Yeah.
Like they bought every single Excel book. They bought every single basic skills book under the sun. I had a whole box like this big full of textbooks. And I did every single book. They timed me on speed. They timed me on accuracy. It got to a point where I wasn't even doing the questions anymore. I was just memorizing which question, like which answer was correct. And I was just fucking coloring it in every single time I saw that question. It's A, it's B, it's A, it's C.
You're
like,
being entrepreneurial.
Bro, I was already
It's just
memorizing
a
it. I was like,
shortcut.
boom, I got this. And the questions I struggled at, I would kind of like sit down and try to figure out. But yeah, if there's one thing I think I probably would have pushed harder, it would probably be academics.
Yeah.
During those times, or most likely, I would have actually tried to sell more shit.
Yeah.
Just for fun, because I really enjoyed watching my parents sell. And so either one of those two things would be probably something that I'll change. Either study harder or study better, or try to sell more stuff. Like that would be interesting. Yeah.
And it's interesting your answer. Like it's still within the context of businesses,
Correct.
or growth,
Yeah,
and career. Right. It's not so much I would have changed like certain relational things in
Nah,
the
man,
past.
I'd
but-
like being broke. Broke is great. You
Yeah.
learn so much being broke. I wouldn't change anything like that. In terms of friends, I had great friends growing up. I think I have a pretty good relationship with my parents. We're
Yeah.
very open with everything. They're very supportive of everything I do. My brother even dropped out of uni or didn't want to go to uni. My parents still supported that, and Asian parents don't usually do that. So I think relationship-wise, great.
Yeah.
I think if anything, I would have changed just stuff to improve who I am today in the business sense, or
Yeah.
just get a move on things a lot earlier
Yeah.
than I did. So
But it's true though. I think that's independence you were talking about. I remember when maybe I was 6 or 7, primary school. I had a necklace around me.
Yeah.
Like a shoelace, really. Black shoelace
Yeah.
with a house key. And
Yeah.
I'd wear that to school.
my parents gave me that too, but I was always too embarrassed to wear that.
I felt like a
chuck
boss.
it straight, bro. I chucked it
was
straight
like-
into my bag. I'm gonna get rolled and someone's gonna steal my house.
I loved it. I rocked it to school. I was like, yeah, like, I have a house. You know, I have responsibilities. You know?
yeah. You know what? We should put your house key on this chain
just
here.
put it, just to demonstrate, you know. But it's things like that. I think that teach you as a kid of responsibility. It
agree.
normalizes it.
Yeah.
You were saying going to work with your parents.
Yeah.
I remember going to work with my parents too when they were delivering goods to like grocery stores.
Yeah.
So that was their business at the time. And obviously I was too young to stay at home. I might burn myself. So I was in a truck on their delivery routes across the city, fast food, you know, all that sort of stuff, and witnessing them driving through Macca's or Hungry Jack's and going, what do you want?
Yeah.
Let's get you a Happy Meal.
Yeah.
And then they'll just like eat some chips,
Yeah.
you know. And that teaches you stuff as a kid. Right?
100%.
It teaches you responsibility. It teaches you like, you know, work ethic and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And same as you, I wouldn't take that back. But a fascinating thing that I've noticed with a lot of second generation people, such as you and me, but
Yeah,
also
correct.
our peers, it was our parents who were like the OG immigrants, hustlers. You know, they came here, they had no plan B, right?
That's right. That was their only choice.
Only
My mum
choice.
came with $500.
Yeah, like
That's
it was crazy. And their sole purpose, and we'll cop earfuls of it, which is we worked hard so you can have a better life.
Correct.
Right.
We did this for you.
I find a lot of people hearing that, and then they're just not so driven anymore.
Yes, correct.
Because they're told, well, wait, hold on, my parents worked hard for
Yeah.
me to live a good life, so
Yeah.
I'm going to live a good life. And I see a lot of second generation immigrants come through the system and just have no drive.
Oh man, please don't get me started.
But then
on
is
this
that a
one.
good thing or a bad thing? Because it was their parents' goal to.
That's true. The
give
parents
them a good
achieved
life.
their goals,
Right,
And then
and now they fit in to society. They have a good job. You know, they're married. They can afford a mortgage, and like the life that really their parents fought for, they have.
that's true.
Is it? How do you feel about that?
I don't know. Why don't we play devil's advocate too, right? Like,
Okay.
why don't we look at both sides of the picture here? With what our parents are trying to create for us, they achieved their goals to give us the better life. which gives us the opportunity to work a job that we potentially have choices for. We get to choose what type of job we want. We get to choose, how much we want to earn. And if you're going to make the excuse and sit there going, oh no, but a job is a job, or I hate my job or whatever, that's on you. Your parents already gave you a great starting ground. Our parents had no choice. It was do or die. Do you think my mum wanted to wash dishes at 3 a.m. in the morning? Do you think she wanted to sew 5,000 dresses a day? Do you think my dad wanted to be sweeping up the shit that was left over at a restaurant? There's no way. I don't think our parents wanted their jobs. It's more like they were forced to do it because they needed to survive. I remember my mum was telling me she used to make $5 a day, $10 a day, and she'd be cheering because she got paid. She was like, I came with no English, nothing, but I just got paid. They used to pay her 1 cent per stitch that she would do. And she would do 1,000 stitches a day, which is $10. And she'd be cheering. She's like, I've got paid. She used to mark out the soy sauce bottle because she didn't want her roommates to steal her soy sauce. Yeah. That's the sort of lifestyle they live. And so they went through all of that hardship for us, and it's crazy because I think back and my mum's back in the day, we used to buy 1 chicken wing a day, 7 chicken wings. And she's telling me this story. We lived in a house where there was 10 other people in a 3-bedroom house, and someone stole a chicken wing. And that was life or death scenario. Fuck, we have no meat for 1 day of the week. No protein, no sustenance. And that was the crazy thing about that. And they went through that for us. So it gives us an opportunity now. And that's why I think nowadays, when people have an intrinsic driver in them, they stand out. Whether it's in a corporate environment, whether it's in an entrepreneurial environment, none of that matters. What matters is this person has an intrinsic driver which goes, wow, this person's something different. They continually push themselves even though they don't need to. And that's what allows them to be the creme de la creme, no matter where they go. They're the ones getting promoted in the corporate space. They know how to work the networks, they know how to work hard, they know how to push the right levers. That in the entrepreneurial space, these guys outwork most other people. Where there's talent, these people with hard work will shine through because sometimes the talent don't recognize that. On one hand, our parents gave us the life that we want to live, and a lot of my friends, they're happy with that, and I think that's great. Making 150K a year, 200K a year, you're satisfied, great job. You might hate your job here and there, but still at the end of the day, the amount of work you put in for that 200K is fairly minimal. 50, 60 hour work weeks, fairly minimal, and they're cheering, they're happy. So good on them. I have no issues with that. What I feel like is a big problem for us and our generation, second generation immigrants, especially parents who have made it, is the big problem there is we tend to not push our human potential anymore. A lot of us are just satisfied. We settle for the 150, 200, when in fact they could be making 2 million. But it's not even just that, but have you ever thought about pushing yourself to figure out how big of a man you can be or how strong of a woman you can be? And what are the limits of your human potential? And that's not for everyone, of course, right? As an entrepreneur, I always preach that, I love seeing people successful. I love seeing people excited about creating, building their own things and reaching their upper limits in terms of their human potential. And so for me, I get that. And I also get that, okay, you're comfortable, you're happy. And sometimes I wish that for myself too. However, I choose to work 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I've done that for the last 10 years of my life. And I just enjoy seeing, wow, I can actually create something that can change so many lives. For example, I look at my customer database over the last 3 years. We've had over 110,000 customers around the world. For me, that's what's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, I've actually been able to touch 110,000 unique people around the world and share something that we've created from nothing. And of course, that's just the beginning, and then you look at all these people out there that are creating awesome things. You're doing great things as well. And I'm sure over the last 10 years in your career, you've impacted thousands of lives too. But again, it's not for everyone. It is completely up to that individual, what they want to spend their time on this planet doing. You only have about 80 years on this planet. Us two, we're pretty much a third of the way there. What do you want to achieve by the time you die? And if that's just, okay, I just want to work that job, I just want to live a comfortable life, go for it. But if you're like, I want to be that person that can change the world or impact thousands of lives, I want to leave a legacy, I want to have a contribution to my society and my community, go for it as well, right? There is no right or wrong answer. It's more like, who do you think you are? And ultimately, are you happy with who you are? If you're lazy and happy about it, great. But if you're lazy and unhappy about it, that's on you. You have the power to change that and create everything that's possible in your life.
I think it's important to note, billionaires, for example, who make billions and then they decide not to pass anything on to their kids.
Oh yeah,
right.
That's crazy.
I think as a parent, what I'm hearing you saying
Yeah.
is you understand it's not your job to give your kids a good life,
Yeah.
but it's your job to teach your kids.
Oh, yeah,
a good
absolutely.
life. And then you have to not rob them of that journey that they can take to earn their own success.
Yes, correct.
So a lot of that second generation who are living the life that their parents helped them build, they're enjoying the fruits of that.
Yeah.
And that's fine, like
Yeah,
you said.
I agree.
But it's the ones that sort of don't hold on to that narrative of like, my parents work hard so I can live a good life. But
So I should
rather-
live that good life.
Well, now I have a choice, I have a platform,
Yeah.
right? Because your parents came here, they were renting, they
Yes,
didn't have
correct.
a house, they bought a house in a crappy suburb, and it was like, yes, we made it, we have our own house. So now you own a house, or you inherited a house
Yes,
in a crappy
correct.
suburb. So now, like, what are you going to do for your kids, for that next generation? You know, are you
Correct.
just going to settle there, or are you going to go, all right, that's my platform, that's where I started, I'm going to work on that.
Yeah.
Now I have an education, I have the language,
Yeah.
I have the social awareness of culture, of people. Now I'm going to bring that to the next level and give my kids a house in like a nice suburb.
Nicer suburb, yeah,
right?
correct.
And then they choose to do what they want to do from there. But it's not our job to settle.
Yeah.
It's our job to emulate and to grow,
Yes,
really. Because
correct.
if our parents didn't take that step of tremendous courage and faith, we wouldn't be here.
Agreed.
And if we don't do something similar, then our kids' life would be significantly
Correct.
different.
I think
right?
I was reading recently, I think Jackie Chan, right? How he's worth he's got like $460 million in assets or something. And he's going to leave nothing to his kid. And he was like, what did he say? The statement was something like along the lines of, if he can't make it on his own, he didn't deserve it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating. Like,
Right.
I'm the same. I would never give my kids something just like, hey son, look, dad's worked 20 years for this Lamborghini, you can take it to school tomorrow. I'll be like, fuck no, you are gonna work your ass off, you're gonna mow the lawn, you're gonna go do the grocery runs, you're gonna go do the chores, and then you save up, you can buy your own Toyota Camry. You're not fucking driving the Lamborghini. It's gonna be, I'll give you these foundations. You'll be able to access dad's resources.
Yeah.
You'll be able to access dad's network. You'll be able to access dad's companies, factories, or people, or
Sure.
talent, or whatever. You can have access to that. But dad's not going to give you anything on a silver platter. Like, you're not going to get something handed down to you. I might spoil my girl, but the boy, a different story. You got to grind, bro. Like,
Girl dad.
yeah. I'll definitely look after my daughter like a princess, but for the boy, nah, you're grinding out there. You better figure it out. You better make it work. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, life is a game of testing your own skills and strength, and I think that's what it is. And money is just simply a physical representation of how high your capacity is. And that's such a weird thing, right? In a capitalist society, that's what it is. Like, money is kind of like a representation of your worth. I think that's one, kind of stupid, but also at the same time, like, it's the only quantifiable thing that really reflects how far you've come in life in this game that society has created. If we were a different type of society, it could be different. But also at the same time, like with our kids, you want them to be in a position where they can leverage what we have spent so long to build. Much like the whole conversation around relationships, right? A brand new girl comes into your life, you're a made man, you spent 10, 15 years getting to a position where you're early 30s, extremely successful millionaire, have your own properties, have multiple nice luxury vehicles, and then all of a sudden a girl comes into your life. Is she entitled to what you have created for yourself? And that's a very hard question to answer as well. And I always have this saying is, if you built with me, you're entitled obviously to half of what you've built with me. And I think that's absolutely fine. If you supported me, built with me in my journey, I agree, you should have whatever you should have. However, if you join my journey late and you haven't contributed to my journey, then no, like, that's not something that is yours. And the same thing with children, right? No, what dad has built is not yours. What dad has built, you have access to, but it is not yours. And you having that access to me is already a game changer for you. Having that network, my wealth of experience, my knowledge, my expertise, like that for you, you are already here compared to most of your peers. So then now imagine, like, if I were to give him and hand feed him stuff and just be like, while all his friends are out there trying to buy like old JDM cars, for example, and I hand him down, hey, here son, here's an Aston Martin for your 18th birthday. Like, he's not gonna have that desire to work anymore, because for him, his base level of standard is like a luxury vehicle or whatever. they're not going to think that that's something desirable. Like most kids grow up, on our dream board is a nice car,
Yeah.
and we work really hard towards it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was for you, like, you know, your Porsche, and for me, my Supra, for example, right? Like we worked our balls off to get there.
Yeah.
But if you were given that, you would lose all sort of drive. Like, oh, if dad's just going to give it to me, why should I work for it? Like if you look at all the big old families, their children have all created their own wealth in some certain way. If you look at Bernard Arnault's family, like they're all heading all these companies. They're all CEOs, they're all executives.
Yeah.
So they're learning how to maintain and keep that wealth.
Yeah.
Imagine just handing down things to them. They know, oh no, son, you don't need to work. You know, you don't need to be the CEO of LV. Here's a McLaren. Here's a mansion. Go live with your wife. Enjoy your life, right? That wealth would disappear in 2 generations.
Yeah.
You know, you could be the richest man this generation. 3 generations later, you're a nobody. That's the crazy thing about this world. Is it's so cyclical. Like everything disappears. Everything you've built will disappear eventually, unless you can teach it and pass it on to the next generation to maintain that. And I think that for me is the fascinating part about having kids and building a future is I can teach this person to maintain what I've spent years of my life to try to achieve. And you know, they can continue to pass that on to their kids, but hopefully we can teach them well rather than just feed them, spoon feed them. Teach them how to do things, like, you know, the whole lead a man to a pool, and, you know, teach them how to fish rather than just give them a fish. Like the whole saying, right, is that the purpose of that one is this exact reason.
And you believe your parents taught you how to fish?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even just teaching me verbally or practically, it was observation as well. You know, my parents led by example, and I think that's what you should do. Like leading by example is so important.
Was there anyone else in your life that reinforced that idea? Because obviously our parents could say one thing, your peer group around you could be, you know, or getting a job or whatever, tell you a different thing, and there comes a certain amount of peer pressure that comes with that. Were there other people in your life that were influential in the direction of entrepreneurship and, I guess, living at your full potential?
Absolutely. I think that I've met a lot of people in my life that have shown me, you know, the ways of living, the way I want to live. I've always really wanted to tap into my full potential. I don't know where it came from. I've always been very competitive. Maybe it's because I have a brother. You know, I've always wanted to be, you know, the big brother. Like I've always wanted to do the best. So I've had a lot of influence from my grandpa. You know, my grandpa gave me a lot of influence. He was an army vet. You know, he was an engineer. He used to invent a lot of stuff. So he actually created one of China's first landing gears for their planes back a long time ago. And so he was telling me his war stories like that, and that kind of showed me, okay, like you can win against like all sorts of different odds, all of that sort of stuff. My father and my mother, great influences in my life. My ex-girlfriend, great influence in my life. Who else? I think a lot of my teachers that believed in me as well, my coaches back in high school, great influences too. When I started getting into entrepreneurship, you were actually one of my greatest influences as well. You showed me that it was possible when you first bought your, when was it, 23, 24, you bought your Porsche. And I was like, okay, cool, this guy's, he's got it, you know, he's young, he's an Aussie, he's done it, he went to the University of Melbourne, studied nutrition. I was like, I'm in Sydney uni studying nutrition. I'm like, I'm 19, just heading into uni, you just finished uni, you got a Porsche. I'm like, I can get a Porsche too. And that was kind of like the idea behind that. Like you have been definitely a great influencer there. A lot of the mentors we both share as well in our space. Plenty of different people, you know, I learn a lot and have been inspired a lot by people like different authors and all sorts of things like that as well, with different podcasts as well. You know, I think influence in life doesn't necessarily just come from the one-to-one, peer-to-peer interactions that you have. Influence in life comes from a lot of the stuff we listen to as well, which is why it's incredibly important to listen to the right people. You know, I see so many of my friends that have amazing potential, but they've wasted 10 years of their life hanging with the wrong crowd. You know, they now have criminal records or like whatever, but their potential is absolutely fucking phenomenal. You know, they're such great thinkers, fast on their feet, innovative, yet because they've been in the wrong crowd, they now have a criminal record. They're completely like, you know, they've been really like squished. And it's kind of like, it's really sad to see.
How did you get into the right crowd?
That's a really good question too. When I was growing up, going through high school, a lot of my friends joined gangs. They joined the triads. it was really interesting watching them. Like for me, I've always been a big brotherhood person. So it was actually kind of attractive to me. Like when these guys were joining gangs, I was like, what if I could be a gangster? Like that'd be cool. I was always thinking to myself, what if I could be a gangster?
Especially in like high school.
Yeah, in high school, it's like, oh, that's so cool. They're getting tattoos. I want to be a gangster. I want to sell drugs and make some money. They were all getting like designer. They were all like all this, and they were like 17. I was always a good kid. I was always a good boy, right? And I was always like that. And I was like, if I became a gangster, could I survive that life? Could I make it? And
That's funny.
Like I was just like, okay, but my parents want me to study. What if I disappoint my parents? So what if I try something different? So I just turned to kind of like making money. And that was kind of like my, not so much escape, but that was also my fascination, was how do you make money?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is a lot of people would justify where they're at and certain behaviors based on their environment.
Yeah.
And they might listen to this and go, well, Alan, you had access. You talk about access.
Correct.
You had access to parents who demonstrated certain attributes.
Yes.
You had mentors in your life in different spaces. Man, I don't have that. Like, for example, like I'm in a gang, or like I'm in a place where like everybody around me is not really doing what I want to do. They don't believe me. I have a dream, and nobody's backing that up. Nobody's believing in that dream. How do I search out like a better circle? Like, is that something you just do?
That's that's a fascinating question, because I get probably one DM about that on Instagram every single day, from kids that have come from the hood or like from the area. I get kids messaging me from the area, and they're always like, I haven't grown up. I have no friends around me that are successful. I have no people around me that have, accomplished success, or they have the mindset that you have. I genuinely believe in one thing, and this has been such an important thing in my life, which was, all you need sometimes is, if you don't believe in yourself, is for one person to believe in you. You need to borrow that belief, and you need to bank on that belief, and you go all the way with it. If someone can see in you something special, then you should take that and run. Like, never ever sit there and think out of your own ego, oh, this is just a one-off, or they're just saying it as a compliment or whatever. If you genuinely meet someone special, or you genuinely meet someone that's authentic and they're successful, and they go, you know what, you have great potential. Don't sit there and go, I don't have potential. Don't sit there and go, oh, I'm from the hood, I might not be able to make it. You should sit there and reflect and go, if this person who's successful thinks that I have potential, I gotta do whatever I fucking can to be able to push that potential and run in that direction. And I say this all the time, if you're from the area, or you've grown up around the wrong crowd and you don't have the right people around you, but you're hungry, go and find the right mentor. Do whatever you can to get in proximity of them. And
Where?
Offer whatever services. You want me to get you a coffee? I'll go get you a coffee. You want me to pick up boxes and move them for you? I'll do it. You want me to come and, do your admin? You want me to come and, respond to people? You want me to respond to your Instagram comments? You want me to post stuff for you? Whatever you can offer it. Like, genuinely, if you are trying to get out of an area where you are surrounded by the wrong people, number one, a lot of people will see you in a certain way just because of the way you're dressed, the way you talk. We always used to talk about, dress for success. Just because of the way you dress, just because of the way you look, just because of the way you, sound, people are going to judge you. You have to break that. How do you break that? You break that by, number one, maybe investing a little bit more in how you look and how you come across. And most importantly, go across and add extreme value to people where they can't even ignore you. Don't be annoying. Don't be continually being super annoying, but be like, okay, how can I help you? If there is anything to help you, I want to help you. But you know what? If you can't reach out to a human being, you can get access to books. Podcasts are free. Watching YouTube videos are free. You need to start working on your own mindset first. Get yourself into a position where you can offer some sort of value, learn a skill potentially. And if you're genuinely trying to get out of an area where you're extremely suppressed, I would say, or you've grown up around the wrong people, before you can even make a change in your life, you must first identify that you want to change. Like, you can't, for us, we can't save anyone that doesn't want to be saved. We can't change anyone that doesn't want to be changed. So first things first is, if you want to get out of that sort of area, do you even want to get out of that area? And if you don't have the awareness to want to get out of that area, well, then you're probably never going to get out of that area. So they need to develop some sort of an awareness. And usually that ends up being, or you've been busted by the cops, or you've been shot, or you've been stabbed. Like that creates some sort of pain for you to change, or your parents have disowned you. And that's a very harsh reality for a lot of people. And it takes that sort of pain for them to go, fuck, maybe I should make a change in my life. And that happens from time to time. But for a lot of people that are trying to get out of, for example, a very negative environment, it's your job to first evolve yourself, to first change yourself before starting to seek out a community and start putting yourself out there. Going to events that you don't generically go to. Going to places like if you're always clubbing on the weekend, why don't you try going to a networking event? Why don't you try going to, finding people in university, going to a university society event, rather than just going clubbing all the time or going to raves and doing drugs and whatever. You have to first change that. Like no one in a position that you're trying to be in is going to sit there and look at you, oh, this guy's a junkie, they have no offer to, like no value to add, they don't dress well, they're coming across very aggressive, whatever. They're not gonna look at you and go straight away, hey, I wanna maybe change this kid's life. You have to first work on yourself before other people can recognize that you're a changing person and that you can actually start to work on that potential you have. We look for proof. We want proof in people that they really want to change for themselves before we decide to even invest into them. We are very limited on time. We are very limited on resources. We are more than happy to help you. We are more than happy to give you guidance, but we can't do that unless you prove it to yourself first.
So from what I'm hearing that answer, it really sounds like you have to believe in yourself, even when people around you don't.
Yes, correct. I think that's important.
In that context, have you ever doubted yourself?
Look, I have. I doubt myself every day. It doesn't matter where you get to in life, there's always going to be doubt that filters in. There's always going to be doubt. And even the most successful people I know in life still doubt themselves. They can make millions of dollars. I've had people that I've met that are making $1 million a day, and they still doubt themselves. Like that's crazy, right? $1 million a day. We can't even imagine that. So I have definitely doubted myself in life, and no matter where you go in life, the only person that believes in you first is you. The rest, people are looking for evidence and proof. There is no such person on this planet that would just randomly believe in you if you don't show them that you are someone to believe in. So the only person that knows you the best, the only person that knows you the most is yourself. So until you can actually be aligned with yourself and back yourself, no one else is going to back you. You have to invest into yourself first before someone else can invest into you. And that's extremely, extremely important in anything that you can do. If you don't have that confidence piece, you don't have that self-belief piece, it's very hard for you to go to the next level and get out of wherever to get into wherever. It's extremely important to have that self-belief.
And it goes back to what you said, like when you don't have that self-belief, finding that one piece of evidence of somebody saying something nice, holding on to it. And I like the analogy of putting it in a bank, high interest, and just let that grow.
Absolutely.
You grow that one bit that you have,
it's a seedling. If someone plants a little seedling in you, all you need to do is continually water it, right? And that's all it is, right? It's very hard. Sometimes we don't see in ourselves something, but someone sees in you something. And if they do, use it. Use it as much as you can to your advantage. That's the most important.
Who were the people that were your, seedlings of belief? You had your parents who you said were non-traditional, so they supported your entrepreneurial journey. Who else? Who are the other people?
Yeah, so parents definitely were a great benefit in my life. They actually did want me to go down a very traditional pathway, which is go to uni, get a degree, get a job, but then I sold them on, you raised me, you should trust in me. If anything, you guys do a business. You're uneducated, I'm educated, let me do a business too, right? That was the kind of pathway there. I think my ex also played a huge role in my life as well.
You guys started Cheeky Glo together.
Correct, we did start Cheeky Glo together, So we were dating for a good 8 years. I've known her since high school. She was a very strong rock in my life in terms of like not just my belief, but support. She supported me for a long time. And it was really good, right? Because having someone in your life, especially a partner, having a partner support you is an extremely important thing. We've met so many people, it's like my girlfriend or my wife or my husband or my boyfriend, they don't believe in this. They don't want me to do this. They think it's a scam, they think it's hard. We shouldn't do this or we shouldn't do that. Like we shouldn't invest that way. And it's so sad, like the conflict that they have when your partner is not supportive is very, very hard. But I was very lucky. I had some supportive friends, not all of them. I had some supportive friends. I had I had a good partner during that time, and I think that gave me the freedom. For me, it was like, I don't need anyone in this world. I need myself, I need my family, I need a good partner, and then I can accomplish anything in this life. That's all I need. I don't need a million friends or a network of 40,000 people. I just need a good partner, good parents that support me, and my family. And if that's the case, I can do anything.
I'm fascinated, Alan, by how people navigate failure.
Yeah.
And I guess curveballs that
Yeah.
come. And one thing people who know you would know that Cheeky Glo, you started with CC, you guys were doing extremely well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't expected. It was
Yes,
just like
correct.
suddenly, sales coming out of nowhere. You guys were making great profit, turning
Yeah.
over a lot of revenue.
Yeah.
It was like this fantastic thing.
Yes, correct.
And a lot of people dream about working with their partner as well.
Yes,
just like
correct.
being able to build something together, and like what you said before,
Yes.
building something together, and then for whatever reason, relationships don't work out.
Yeah.
Yet you still share this business together.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that process?
Look, it's really hard, man. Thinking back, like when we had started the business, we were about 3 months into the business. The business was doing fantastic. We exploded. We got to 6 figures a month in the business. It's phenomenal. For most e-commerce businesses, their goal is to hit 10K a month. For us, we did 6. We did 6 figures a month. 100K plus a month. And it was an amazing journey. It blew up, and it's everything you can think of, right? Like everything seems to be going right. Long-term relationship, built $1 million business together, but then all of a sudden it just goes bang, right? Relationship doesn't work out. I think we just got to a point in the relationship where there was some stagnant tension that we didn't address. I wasn't as aware as I needed to be in terms of who I should have been in the relationship as well. And relationship is such an important factor of someone's life. We have so many relationships, whether it's friends, whether it's mentors, whether it's partners, or, lover, hopefully not many lovers, but lover, and you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, or a husband, wife. I think it's very important in a relationship to be aware about your role, what you should bring to the table, and the amount of energy and effort you give to each other as well. And I think there are a lot of things that I could have done better in my relationship, looking back and reflecting on it after that. It was a very, very difficult time, not gonna lie. That's probably one of the hardest periods of my life. Everyone always goes, oh, you just got lucky, or, business is so easy, like you guys grew it so quickly. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was a very, very tough time. Yeah. During that period of, I think it was 3 months. During that period of 3 months, it was grandpa passed away, dog 1 passed away, broke up with a very long-term partner, second dog passed away. So for me, it was like 4 hits in 3 months.
Yeah.
Very, very tough. I grew up with my dogs, right? Same thing, 8-year relationship with my dogs, raised them. Partner of 8 years, gone. And then also my grandpa, who was the one that raised me and taught me all my values, gone. So that was a very, very, very challenging time, and I've always been so fascinated by my businesses and my journey so far, because every single time something goes spectacularly well financially or in business, something personal life completely explodes. And that was a very, 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 very interesting time for me. It was a very dark time because everything's going well, right? I've never made that much money in my life before. The cash flow was amazing. We were very profit heavy. We were very strong on that. But also at the same time, everything personal life was just blowing up.
If I could audibly hear your voice of what you were talking, what was your internal voice to yourself during that time? Like, what were you?
If you were in my head that time, it would have been very dark.
Because it's euphoria from the business.
Oh, absolutely.
And then pain from loss.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. During that time, I'm pretty sure, I'm very confident it was like a solid 6 months of depression. I'm very confident that during that time, every day just felt grey, if that ever made sense. You just weren't motivated, didn't want to do anything. Even though your business was doing thousands and thousands of dollars a day, you wake up and you go, you know what, I really can't be fucked today. I'm just gonna sit there, do some work, and then just chill out. I remember there were literally days where I would just go outside at the office and I'll just sit on the balcony, and I'll just literally stare at the wall or literally stare at the sky for a solid 6 hours. It was fucked. It was no motivation, didn't want to do anything. I was like, why did I even bother building this business in the first place? You know, do I really even want to continue building this business? Do I want to do this? Or do I just throw it all away? Do I just, you know, just completely go cold turkey, disappear and start again? Like, there's so many different thoughts going through my head, you know, but there was one thing that always was in that, which was, the fuck? Like, stop being a little bitch, right? You don't give up on things. You've always said you're a high performer, you want to be the best. Why would you give up? Even though the relationship may not have worked out, even though things didn't work out in that sense, that doesn't mean you give up on the things you guys built. And that doesn't mean you give up. And I think that's what ultimately pushed me through that period was I knew that if I gave up on myself, that everything would go back to zero. Did I just simply throw away an 8-year relationship or waste an 8-year relationship? And did I just build something where, you know, it was kind of like, well, just because everything in my personal life is not going great, does that mean my professional life also doesn't need to go well? You know, it was a very dark time. It was very hard. Like, lots of thoughts going through my head, like, fuck, what happened? What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Can I go back? Should I fix this? And for a good 6 months, it was just stuck in that. And the thing is, during that time, I told no one. No one knew we had even gone for a breakup because to the public eye, we were still together.
Did you want to tell people?
I was very indifferent about it. You know, Cece still cared about that image a bit, you know, and it was very important for us to look that we were still very cohesive in the public eye. But I was very indifferent. So I kind of felt nothing for a while. It was kind of like whether my friends knew or didn't, it was whatever, right? So for a good 3 months, I was in my own head, solid 3 months. And then for another 3 months after that, you know, my best friend found out. I broke that news to him. My parents found out. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, we got to get Alan out of his own head because people were like, where the fuck did Alan go? He disappeared for 3 months. You know, I wasn't going out. I didn't do anything. And it was good. Like, you know, during that time, it was like, I bought my dream car, businesses were going great. Everything on the outside world, I was still smiling, laughing, same thing, but in the inside world, you're just mentally fucked up. And I think that's what happens for a lot of depression as well, right? To the outside world, for a lot of people, they see you, they go, wow, everything's going great. You know, Alan's doing fantastic. You know, him and Cece, I'm so jealous of. Like, you know, they're a couple that built this amazing business together. I've always wanted to do that for my partner. But deep down inside, like, no one ever knew. Like, it was always like every time we met up with our friends, like, oh, when are you guys getting married? And like in my head, I'm like, we broke up 3 months ago. Kind of told them. Happens all the time. I think you even asked me as well during that time too.
Sounds familiar.
Like you even asked me during that time as well.
It sounds familiar.
And yeah, like it happens, right? And then we're just sitting there awkwardly. We're going, yeah, we'll see what happens.
I saw that.
we'll see what happens.
Moving on.
Moving on. But it happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, like we didn't want to embarrass each other or anything like that either. And public image is very important to us in that stage of the business too. But it was very tough. But there was a lot of reflection that came with that. And you know, I think I'm very much so a better man now than where I was, you know, that 1.5, 2 years ago.
Do you feel like you value relationships more now?
Oh, absolutely.
That you've, you know, gone through building a business successfully, but losing many relationships. Do you value that more now?
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, relationships is such a key thing. You know, I genuinely don't think that a person can be successful in life until they're successful in their relationships. And it's such a critical factor, right? Having the right partner with you that can build with you, that can support you, but you're also giving back to her. You know, I think for a lot of the time when I was in my previous relationship, I was stuck in my own head. You know, I was stuck in my own competency and incompetencies. I was in my own self-doubt. I never ever wanted to lean on my partner, you know, or give in to show them that, you know, I wasn't feeling the way I wanted to feel. You know, and a lot of that was I never reached the success that I wanted to reach as fast as I should have. And I never really relied on my partner or used her as a cornerstone to me to vent that out. It was always for her, like I had to be strong. I could never, ever be that weak person for her. I always had to be successful or strong, or I always had to lead that relationship, and I could never be vulnerable to her. And I think that was a huge thing for me, is that was a big struggle. And for now moving forwards, I know that that's a very important thing in a relationship, that I need to be vulnerable enough to trust in them, and to also talk about things that I'm insecure about as well, and certain insecurities that I may have. As much as I'm a secure person, there are always going to be not so much insecurities, but doubts in your head that you would love to clear up with your partner. But also at the same time, it's realizing that there are a lot of things that I could have done better. Maybe I could have gotten more presence. Maybe I could have been more thoughtful. Maybe I could have been, you know, put more attention on her. Maybe I could have been more present. And that's why for me now, I've gone back, reflected what I've done horribly wrong and what I can improve on. For example, like no phones at the dinner table. Anytime I go out on a date, I'll never check my text. no matter how busy I am, right? Be present in a conversation, always look at them, take them out, buy gifts, plan in advance, do all of that sort of stuff. Stuff that in a long-term relationship you get complacent about. Whether it's planning a nice restaurant or telling them to dress up or taking them out on a date. We start to get confused that, hey, just going out for dinner every week is a date, but it's not. And starting to be more conscious about your intentions in terms of going on dates together, spending good quality time together, knowing each other's love languages properly, and identifying all of that. And I think that's such an important thing that a lot of males, especially like alpha male masculine types nowadays, don't do much. Because they just think, oh, I've got to be the alpha, I've got to be the leader. It's always like lead, do this, do that. But never be conscious on an emotional side of their partner. And I think for me, that's very important. Like no matter how much I can be an alpha male masculine type, I need to be very conscious of my partner's emotions, because girls at the end of the day are a lot more emotional. And I was just super logic driven during my relationship. It's like, oh, why do we need to go there? Like, why should we spend the money here? Like, I'm trying to save up to invest. Like, I'm doing this for your wedding ring. Like, I shouldn't, like, I'm doing this to buy us a property. Like, oh, just don't get a present for 2 years. Like, it was very, very logical, mathematically.
Sounds like me before marriage.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it was very, very mathematical, very calculated, very, very logical. But then I realized, fuck, you got to make her feel good from time to time. You got to give her the energy of the day. You got to give her, emotional support. You've got to actually be empathetic with her. You got to communicate, and you got to do all of these sort of things. And so, I think the breakup genuinely for me has made me, I think, a better partner for the future. Like right now, I'm still single, and I'm single by choice. But it's mainly like, it allows me to be conscious of, if moving forwards into a new relationship, what sort of partner I can be for them, how I want to make them feel, how I want to bring them into my life so that they have a certain area in my life. They need to still know that I'm the leader in our relationship, but at the same time, I'm going to allow them to feel like I'm not just a blank, soulless man that's trying to lead a relationship, because that's what happens to a lot of girls. They're men who are alpha male types, right? Always are very blank, soulless, emotionless. Like I can't be that person anymore, I realize. Because I was that person for a good 3-4 years. And I think that was predominantly the reason for the downfall of our relationship, was being not just emotionally not present, but also being very like emotionless. I think business changed me a lot in that sense. And I just need to be a lot more aware of that and be better in either giving attention and giving more love to my future partner to make them feel a certain way, rather than me just thinking logically, oh, I'm the leader, I've got to do this, I've got to do this for us, so I put you secondary, so once I achieve this thing, then I can look after you. It doesn't work that way. It's got to be through the journey, and I think I learned that a lot from CC, is to be present and to actually not worry about the destination, because without that partner next to you, there was no destination in the first place. And that was the biggest insight that I got out of that, is being aware of that. Is like, if I don't enjoy the process with them, even though it may set my destination back maybe a year or two, there will be no destination without them in the first place. So I think that was like a very interesting thing for me in terms of awareness, just reflecting on my previous relationships and how I can be better. And I think genuinely for a lot of us, we need to do that better for our relationships. And it's applicable not just to romantic partners, but also to platonic friends and all that sort of stuff. Just to be aware of how we can be better friends and better lovers is an extremely important piece. And yeah, in the future, I definitely want to do like, whether it's biannual checkpoints or whatever with my partner, to kind of see, hey, this is where you're at, this is where I'm at. Like, let's align our goals, let's align our emotional values, do all of that sort of work in the relationship. Because I've realized now, a relationship is a separate entity, just like business is. And if I don't work on the relationship independently to myself and herself, it's never going to work.
So essentially, that's how you went through that season of failure.
Yeah.
You learnt stuff.
Oh, I learned so much.
And that's, I think, so important for young people to hear, because it's almost like if you do well, great, you get likes and affirmation. If you fail, you suck.
Yeah.
It's like a yo-yo diet of like affirmation or judgment.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we try to avoid failure, but I think it's so important that you shared that, because you were doing well career-wise, relationally not so well.
Yeah.
But you went through that dark time and you still came out of it growing and being a better person, being more vulnerable, facing insecurities a lot more.
Yeah.
So now that today you're obviously started multiple businesses, you're still doing very well as an entrepreneur. What are your insecurities?
That's a good one. I think insecurity is, I don't know what this is, but I always feel like I'm not good enough. You know, I think no matter where I am at, no matter how much money I make or whatever, and no matter how successful the businesses are, I still always sit here and go, where can I do better? Like,
Where do you think that comes from? That
I don't, honestly, I've heard this a lot. There's a big thing with high performance. Like, people who are high performance never think they're good enough. They always have this psyche which is like telling them, you know, you're shit. You know, no matter how much they accomplish, there's always someone better. And I believe that wholeheartedly, whether it's sports, whether it's, you know, business, whether it's relationship, I always want to be the best. I've always been hyper competitive. And so I think the big insecurities that I have now is I know that there are a lot of people better than me. And my insecurity there is, well, actually, you know what? I lie. I bring that back. I've got two big insecurities. One is, am I ever going to be good enough to the level that I want to be? And the second insecurity is trust and loyalty.
Yeah.
That's a huge one for me because I really want to build, you know, large successful teams and organizations. But to do that, you have to have a lot of trust and a lot of like loyalty. You know, going through businesses over the last, you know, 2-3 years, multiple businesses, I've had a lot of people come and go. But whether they come on a good term and go on a good term, that's a different story. But a lot of people come and go. There's a lot of people that kind of snake you. There's a lot of people that backstab you, even though you have plans for them, even though you're creating things for them. Like, we don't need to do certain things, but we do it because this person has entered our life and we want to provide for them in a certain way. Whether it's staffing, whether it's partners, whether it's interns, whatever it is. You know, and I think that's very, very important for me. It's like a huge insecurity is the person I'm bringing onto my team someone that is here to actually grow, learn, and build a business with me, rather than just here to leech information or leech my network or, you know, get something out of me. That's always a big insecurity that I have, and I think that's developed more so recently because the bigger your businesses get, the more your businesses grow, you realize the more important the people around you are, and especially your inner circle. Like, who do you let in to listen to certain information or whatever? And because access to information is a key defining point to a person's success. And so that's a big thing for me is, you know, if I dedicate and invest a lot of time and energy into a person, you know, can I trust that this person's going to be by my side 5 years down the line making millions of dollars with me? Or are they just here to do that so they can go out, compete with me or work with a competitor? So those are like two of the main insecurities that I probably have nowadays. Everything else I genuinely am very indifferent to. Relationship wise, I'm actually okay. Like, I don't really have too many insecurities with relationship. It's more like if I vibe with a person, I can trust them. We develop that over time. I don't jump into things straight away. Like, that's absolutely fine. I'm super secure. If you want to go out clubbing with the girls, go. If you want to go out, have fun, go. If you want to do this, do that, go. I don't really care. It's mainly like, you know what you have, and I know what I have. And, you know, if you are going to be my partner, my ride or die, you're going to be my ride or die. And I want to trust that. I never want to look at your phone. I never really care who you're going out with. I just want to know that you're mine and I'm yours. And then, like, that's pretty much it. And if you prove to me, and I always look for proof, if you prove to me that's not you, then, well, goodbye. Like, I don't have time to waste with that. And the same thing goes with business partners, friends nowadays. As we get older, we realize, you know, people come and go faster and faster. And the ones that stick and stay, you know, they stick and stay, they're really strong. And so, like, in terms of security-wise, quite secure about, you know, how I build relationships, who I'm with. Insecure about mainly, you know, the people that I let in, because I try to create a lot. I'm a very big giver, and I want to give people opportunity. And the last thing I want is to give someone opportunity that's ungrateful for it, or, you know, just here to leverage me for something of their own personal gain. Those are probably like the main insecurities, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, Alan, we have a closing tradition on this podcast where the previous guest is asked to write in this official book, the official journal, of something that they would, a piece of advice that they would share with their younger self that would have been really useful for them. Okay. And then I pass that on to the next guest. Okay. And you see how relevant that would be for you. So the previous guest, and you won't know who it is. Okay. Is it anonymous? Which makes it fun. Yes. Right? I know who it is. Okay. This person has bad handwriting. I'm trying to read this because it's the first time I'm reading it. Don't worry, hopefully my handwriting's better. Okay, cool. So the piece of advice is, it's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. Keep moving forward no matter what. I like that. And it's true.
I definitely believe that's true. Like I've gone through some pretty bad shit during my business journeys. It definitely, you know, at the end of the day, you go to bed, you wake up, it's just another day. And as good as it seems as well, like, you know, you can have a spectacular day. You know, I've done the biggest months that I've ever done financially, and you wake up, it's just another day. You know, the next day could be bad. The next day you might have another competitor. The next day you might be in a lawsuit. Like, it is what it is. You know, life is life. Just, you can't stay stagnant. That's the one thing of life. And I think that's a fantastic piece of advice.
Yeah, and it's important to, I guess, realize that you're not defined by your good times or your bad times.
Oh, absolutely.
Both will come.
Oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely,
both-
absolutely.
Both will come, but you stay grounded in who you are.
Correct.
Right, your inner self, whether it's a good time or a bad time, you take it as it is.
Correct.
And it should not change or alter who you are.
Correct. Correct. Like we shouldn't be defined by those times where we were in the bottom of the bottom. You shouldn't make decisions when you're at the bottom of the bottom. But you know, you shouldn't be defined by that. Just because you failed once doesn't mean you're a failure for life. Just because you're successful once doesn't mean you are actually successful. You know, we see that a lot nowadays. Gurus, right? Our young 18-year-old gurus, they have one business success. They made 2K a week for like 3 months. And then now they're all of a sudden a mentor, business mentor, and successful business guru, whatever it is. But the truth is, that's not you. Like, you had one success. You know, can you repeat it? Can you duplicate it? Can you do it multiple times? And then if you failed once, does that mean you're going to fail again? Probably not. I mean, I've started 18 businesses to date now. Failed a large, not so much failed, but like, you know, they weren't definitely successful like they are today. And then in the last 3 years, I've done 3 in a row. You know, $3 million businesses in a row. And so, if I went back and I looked at myself and I go, oh fuck, well that business you started at 15, you only made $100 a week out of. That's all you're capable of. Then I'll be fucked. I'll never be able to be in the position where I am today. So you have to be very, very intentional with your life and just know that if you continue moving forwards, you got an 80-year playing field, an 80-year runway. Like, just cause 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months didn't go well, but you still got 79 years to go. Look at us. We're like, oh, I'm almost 30 and you're just 30. And it's like,
Thank you.
You know, still young, but we've got at least a solid, 30 years to crack on.
Yeah.
Who cares if we fail? You know, I could make $0 this year and I still could make that all back next year, you know. So it's never ever allow your failures to define who you are, and you're not a failure just because you failed. Just gotta remember that. I think that's a great piece of advice.
Amazing.
So
Well,
what would I write?
you get to think about that off camera. But thank you, Alan.
Yes.
Thank you for being here today. Thank
Appreciate
you for sharing your insight and being so vulnerable. I think it's so important for successful people to also share that they go through what normal people go through.
Absolutely.
And to normalize that, and still, so people don't use what they go through as an excuse, but rather, you know, it's normalized, and say, hey, if they can go through it, come out on top, I can as well. So you've been a great inspiration to many people. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And I'll see you soon.
I'll see you soon, as always.